The story of the Battle of Jericho is one of the most memorable and symbolic events in the Bible. This narrative is found in the book of Joshua, where we meet Joshua, a man chosen by God to lead the Israelites after the death of Moses. Joshua's role was crucial, as he guided the Israelites in their conquest of Canaan, the land promised to their ancestors by God. Jericho was the first major city they encountered on this journey, and its conquest became a testament to faith, obedience, and the power of God. Joshua takes command. After Moses' death, God appointed Joshua to lead the Israelites. Joshua was not only a faithful servant of Moses, but also a strong and courageous leader. God's words to Joshua in Joshua 1 verses 5 to 6 were clear and reassuring. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. God's promise to Joshua was a continuation of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Israelites were about to step into the fulfillment of centuries-old promises. In Joshua 1 verses 10 to 11, Joshua instructed the people, "Go through the camp and tell the people, get your provisions ready. 3 days from now you will cross the Jordan here to go in and take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving you for your own." The people's response was one of complete allegiance, as they declared their obedience to Joshua's commands. Joshua 1 verses 16 to 18. The spies and Rahab. Before advancing, Joshua sent 2 spies to scout the land, particularly Jericho. Joshua 2 verse 1. Jericho was a fortified city, known for its massive walls and strong defenses. The spies entered Jericho and stayed at the house of Rahab, a prostitute. Despite her occupation, Rahab's role in the story demonstrated her faith and courage. The king of Jericho soon learned of the spies' presence and demanded that Rahab turn them over. Joshua 2 verse 3. However, Rahab hid the spies on her roof and deceived the king's men, saying the spies had already left the city. Afterward, she confessed her belief in the God of Israel. In Joshua 2 verses 9 to 11, Rahab said, "I know that the Lord has given you this land and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below." Rahab's acknowledgement of God's sovereignty set her apart. She pleaded for the safety of herself and her family when the Israelites would attack Jericho. The spies agreed to her request, instructing her to tie a scarlet cord in her window and gather her family into her house to ensure their protection. Joshua 2 verses 12 to 21. Rahab's faith not only saved her family but also earned her a place in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Matthew 1 verse 5. Crossing the Jordan River. The Israelites then prepared to cross the Jordan River. God gave Joshua specific instructions regarding the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred chest containing the 10 Commandments. The Ark was to be carried by Levitical priests, and the people were to follow it at a distance. Joshua 3 verses 3 to 4. Joshua assured the people that God would perform wonders to demonstrate his power and faithfulness. As the priests carrying the ark stepped into the flooded Jordan River, the waters upstream stopped flowing and piled up in a heap, allowing the Israelites to cross on dry ground. Joshua 3 verses 15 to 17. This miraculous event echoed the parting of the Red Sea and reminded the Israelites of God's continual guidance and provision. God commanded Joshua to take 12 stones from the riverbed, 1 for each tribe of Israel, to serve as a memorial. These stones were set up at Gilgal, where they would remind future generations of God's power. Joshua 4 verses 6 to 7. The crossing of the Jordan solidified Joshua's leadership and struck fear into the hearts of the surrounding nations. Joshua 5 verse 1. The commander of the Lord's army. As Joshua approached Jericho, he encountered a mysterious figure described as a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua 5 verse 13. When Joshua asked whether the man was for them or their enemies, the man replied, "Neither, but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come." Joshua 5 verse 14. Recognizing the divine nature of this being, Joshua fell face down in reverence. The commander instructed Joshua to remove his sandals because he was standing on holy ground. Joshua 5 verse 15. This encounter reaffirmed that God was with the Israelites and would lead them to victory. The Siege of Jericho. The city of Jericho was on lockdown, with no one allowed to enter or leave due to fear of the Israelites. Joshua 6 verse 1. God gave Joshua unconventional instructions for capturing the city. He told Joshua, "March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, everyone straight in." Joshua 6 verses 3 to 5. Joshua faithfully relayed God's instructions to the people. For 6 days, the Israelites marched silently around Jericho, with only the priests blowing their trumpets. This silence must have unnerved the people of Jericho, who watched anxiously from behind their walls. On the 7th day, the Israelites marched around the city 7 times. When the priests sounded their trumpets, Joshua commanded the army to shout. The walls of Jericho collapsed, and the Israelites charged straight in, capturing the city. Joshua 6 verse 20. Rahab's deliverance and the destruction of Jericho. As promised, Rahab and her family were spared because of her faith and assistance to the spies. The spies escorted her family to safety outside the Israelite camp. Joshua 6 verses 22 to 23. Meanwhile, the city was completely destroyed, and everything in it was devoted to God. Only Rahab and her family were spared. Joshua 6 verses 24 to 25. The conquest of Jericho was a turning point for the Israelites. It demonstrated the power of faith and obedience to God. The Israelites' victory was not achieved through military might or strategy, but through reliance on God's guidance. This event underscored the importance of trusting God, even when His instructions seem unusual or difficult to understand. Lessons from the Battle of Jericho. The story of Jericho offers several timeless lessons for believers. Faith in God's promises. Joshua and the Israelites trusted God's promise to give them the land of Canaan, and their faith was rewarded. Obedience to God's instructions. The Israelites followed God's unconventional plan for conquering Jericho, which led to their success. God's sovereignty. The miraculous events surrounding Jericho's fall demonstrated that God is in control of all things, including the natural world and the affairs of nations. God's mercy. Rahab's story illustrates that God's mercy is available to all who turn to Him in faith, regardless of their past. The Battle of Jericho is a powerful reminder that God is faithful to His promises and that nothing is impossible for those who walk with Him. By trusting and obeying God, believers can overcome any obstacle and experience the fulfillment of His plans for their lives.
If you found this video enjoyable, please consider liking and sharing it. Additionally, subscribing to this channel will ensure that you receive more updates in the future. Thank you.